All right. Hi. Thanks for joining me in this video cast. I'm Mr. Yes, and I was about to do this video cast for a while now, probably a week or so, but I couldn't do it. So I named this video cast and I published it on my Twitter and other handles saying that I will be doing a series of videos on ReactJS, and this is for beginners to advanced. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna tear apart bits and pieces of React and see how they all come together to help us build a single page application. So before I do anything, or before I do a conversation with you here, I want to put a couple of things here. So most of the stuff that we're going to do in this series would be as if we're doing a pair programming kind of stuff, and the other one would be a real-time application development, so that you don't feel like that this is all pre-cooked and presented to you, and when you go back to your desk, put your hands there and try to work on stuff, and few times, many a times things that don't work as expected, and you have no clue on how to fix that. So I wanted to do it as a kind of pair programming and real-time application development. So before we jump into that, let me quickly go back to my VS Code and do this. Run a short tiny command. Most of you would be familiar with this, and it's npx create react app in the current folder. I already have level 01 stream here, and I'm doing npx create react app. So now we will, before it gets installed, I think yeah, so by the time it gets installed, it might take probably 5 to 6 minutes of time to set all the things up. So why we essentially need a create react app rather than trying to pull all pieces together and work our way through. Okay, installing packages. Okay, is that the React uses a lot of stuff which is ES6. So when you want to transpile it to, so that help browsers understand, you need a transpiler. So you need a transpiler which is Babel, which transpiles your ES6 to ES5. So one of the quickest examples that I can give you here is, let me go to Notepad, and so in ES5 you might have written a function like this, function add, which takes two parameters and returns x plus y. However, if you go with the ES6 format, you can write it like this. Define a variable, give it a name, then have a couple of braces there, give it a fat arrow or a directional arrow, then have the same stuff inside. So this is ECMAScript 2015, or most popularly known as ES6, and most browsers weren't really supporting these ES6 features when these features came up in the early 2013, 2014, or 2015. So what a React team did was they used Babel so that they can write these newer versions of JavaScript specifications and compile them back to the language, the way that the browsers understand the JavaScript, which is ES5, and Babel is one amazing library which helps us do all this stuff. So that's one thing. Then we have Webpack. Webpack is an amazing module. So it's a bundler. It helps you build your React app for production ready stuff. So if you're gonna do this, minimizing the files, or create those min files, it would be a lot of effort for us as individual developers. So what React team thought was that they would be well off if you have all these things bundled together than writing stuff individually. So that's one thing. The other thing is, the third one is that React is not a framework, but it's essentially a library. So when I say a library, it's just few pieces of few functions put together and given to you. Probably you have written some files, you gave it to me, and I wrote some files, and you've taken them and you've put them inside your application and you start working on them. So essentially, to make all these things come together, we needed a better way, a boilerplate code called Create React App. So 95% of the people out there use this, and you might be surprised. What about the other 5%? The other 5% put that effort that I've previously explained. It's not because they are not happy with Create React or something that they would have an amazing experience on building their own stuff. It's just that they want to do it in a bit different way. But end of the day, you need to have all these things in one place to make a successful single page application come up with React. So what I'm going to do is go to the reactjs.org website. I think somehow it got stuck. I know, but my RAM is like, the disk usage has went up to 100%, unfortunately, the last couple of days, and I'm not sure what's wrong with this. If you guys know a workaround to get this fixed, please put them in the below comment section, and I'll be happy to take them and work through them and come up with a solution to this. And thanks. Yeah, coming back to this, so the best place where you're gonna see for help for React is their website. Please go to reactjs.org and say get started. React uses most of the ES6 features, and see, the browser got stuck. So a couple of reasons. One is because my streaming application is eating a lot of RAM. The other one is the npx create react app. So create a new React app. How do you learn it? And a few of the guides. So getting started, guide to main things, JavaScript. So whenever you get confused, please go see JavaScript. So when they say this tip, so the reason why I asked you that we should go through this website is specifically for this reason, that if you are stuck with something in React, it is not specifically a React problem, but it's the lack of our ability to understand the nuances of JavaScript. When I say the nuances of JavaScript, most of you would have seen a lot of videos and tutorials out there in the community where people have used classes to write React. So essentially, classes help us have this state management in React components. And when you write classes, there are a couple of not caveats, but a couple of places where people lag to understand. Is that how the constructor works? The other one is how the state has to be declared. The third one is how do you have these functions that you define which consume these properties inside the state, and either put it or attach it to the components inside the React element. Attach it to the elements inside the React component, or get data back from the element which the user entered and attach it back to the state, the state object. When I say state, it's a plain JS object and nothing else. So please don't get confused. If you are still confused, I would say that it is as good as writing this. The font is too small. I did not realize it before. So const state. That's it. This is a variable name with a name called state, and it has some properties. Currently we don't have any properties out there. It's just a plain JavaScript object. And if you want, you can define name, initialize it. Probably you want to define a place, define it, give a comment. So you've initialized some values. Probably you think that you're gonna get these values from somewhere, a parent component, and what you do is you get them from props. So what you do is this dot props dot name, and this is this dot box dot place. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So that's the state. It's a plain object. So when you write a JavaScript file, you generally have these variables. They can be arrays, objects, or plain simple placeholders, or the ones not placeholders but data holders. So state is one such thing and nothing else. Okay, and let's go back and check if my okay. So we have our npx installation ready. So let me quickly minimize my view so that you have a better view of what you are able to see here. I'm not sure if you guys are able to see what's in here. It's a bit big. How do I increase this setting? I increase the font size, but let me quickly increase here as well. Quick suggestions, visible suggestions for the widget. Probably it's a general default font size that would be applicable here as well. So let me put it as 28. No, not really. Okay, we'll figure it out in the process of writing our code. So if you are able to see the screen, then it has a lot of files and folders here. I'll highlight it. So the one is node modules. Most of you would be familiar with it. It's the modules that we pick up from npm. So someone would have published probably a calculator application in JavaScript, and you want to use that, reuse that module in your application rather than reinventing the wheel. Then you go host that. Someone would host it on npm, and you would pull it back saying npm install calculator. Then these two are the most important files in your React app. So one is the public one. So it has all the files that are publicly exposed. So the important one is the index.html. So you can see that is the font size good enough. All right, I slightly have increased the font size. Let me minimize this, probably close this and minimize this. Yeah, so this is the good old HTML file for you. So it has a title inside the head. It has a body. The body has just one element, which is div with an ID called root. And then link. Then you have your manifest file, a logo. Let's quickly go and run this application to see what's our default page when we run our node application. So I'll say npm run start. Now how do I know it's npm run start? Package.json, it has scripts. So it has 4 scripts. One is start, the other one is the build script, the other one is test, and the fourth one is eject. We'll talk in the later series why we need eject and how do you run build and why would you need to run npm start for your development environment and your development experience. So essentially this would bring up it would put together all this stuff and render our React application as in our browser as a single page application. So by the time it comes up, let's quickly go and have a look at the other things that we have here. Oh, now it's beautiful. I think you guys can see pretty much. So inside the source folder you have few files. The app.js, the main JavaScript file, its supported CSS file, then few tests for this JavaScript file, and then index.js, the main entry point for our React application and its corresponding CSS, an SVG. What do you expect an SVG to be? An image. Then some code for your service worker file. Now how do I say, like, how do I understand that index.js is my entry point for the application of my React? Simple, go back to your package.json. Is it in the package.json? The font is too big, I even get confused. Where did I define it? Just give me a minute. Okay, I got it. So I'm sorry, I somehow got confused. So the entry point of this React app is not necessarily mentioned here, because what you see is the npm start. It's internally, when you say React scripts and start, it would kick off the webpack behind the scenes, and inside the webpack of our application is where you have the entry points defined. So the webpack would say, okay, go find this as my entry point. And now when we say, okay, index.js is my entry point for the application, even then, even if you have mentioned index.js as your entry point in your application in the webpack, when React runs and skims through this application code in the index.js, it would go and see if it really has the necessary values to be called it as an entry. So one of the biggest thing is the React DOM.render. This is the function that is React is specifically looking out for to understand if it's an entry file that you have correctly mentioned in your webpack. Otherwise it would fail to run. So now let me go and see if it's successfully okay. It says that it's exposed on my local machine at localhost 3000. So this is my localhost 3000. So it's a bare minimum file. It has a logo, some text, and then says a link learn React, which would essentially take you back to this page. So let's start tearing apart. Let's go back to the code, minimize it, say Control J, Control B. All right. I'll scale it to have both of them next to each other so that it will help us understand how things work. Okay, so we have an image here, so let's go and say inspect element, highlight it. Okay, it says app logo. Now it's some SVG file. Now where is this coming from? Let's go to our folder and see. It's logo 25. Okay, where are the React? Okay, I'm sorry. We'll have to open it in Chrome, because Chrome, I have installed my so the reason why I'm opening Chrome is because I have installed React developer tools there, and let's open localhost 3000 here. inspect, components. So this essentially says that it's a component, it's an image inside the class called app header, okay, and app logo is what its CSS is. So now go back to our application. Let's go back to our application and see app.js. So it says, okay, so this is class header. So if we comment out this code, header, okay, let's comment the image first, then the whole header. It's the React would re-render the page and the image is gone. So it's purely HTML that you're writing. However, the way you write the HTML that you write inside React is called JSX. We would go on to define them and understand them. We would spend a lot of time there as well, but trust me, the reason why I'm going through line by line is for all of us to understand every piece of this React application. So we have another line here, that's a paragraph inside paragraph tag. It's gone, and you're left with an anchor tag. That's gone. So let's put up a paragraph here. Welcome to ReactJS series. Welcome to sharing part ReactJS. Alright, so that's how we write our, it's a simple plain good old HTML paragraph tag that I've written. Now let's go back and check the index.js. So it has few import statements and then a react dom.render and a service worker. So it says if you want your app to work offline and load faster, you have to use the service worker. In our current series we won't use this, so I'll quickly go delete that. So because we have not used it, my editor shows that I haven't used an import statement. We'll remove that. Now we see this code, welcome to tearing apart ReactJS series. Where did we write it? We wrote it inside the app.js, and we are importing app.js here and rendering it here. Now this might be Greek and Latin for us, or some unknown new language for us, but don't worry about it. We'll slowly understand that. So let's comment out the code that imports app.js and see what happens. It says app is not defined. Now why? We have used app here, but we did not import it here. So let's say I'll delete app here. I'll put a paragraph here. We'll write the same code. This is from parent element. Alright, there you go. You have your text rendered by React here. So essentially what we understand is we don't need app.js as well. So let's go delete app.js. Yes, I want to move it to recycle bin. Because we don't have app.js, we don't need its CSS, we don't need its tests.js. Alright, what we are left with is the good old index.js. And now you understand that index.js is the entry point for application, because this is where React is picking up the things and rendering it for us in the browser. So let's remove the import statement as well. And because we aren't doing any CSS, let's remove this first, then we'll see. Let it render. We still have our pieces of, we still have our text there, which we written in the paragraph element. We are not using any CSS, so I don't need the index.css, so I don't have to import it. Now that I'm not using it anywhere, I'll delete it. Our application still works, so we are started to tear apart our React bits by bits. So we are left with just 3 lines of code here. One is import React from React, the other one is import React DOM from React DOM, the other one is React DOM.render with some HTML code, and we are passing another value called document.getElementById, and we have given some text inside it. Now you must be wondering, what is this root? Let's see, where is this coming from. Probably will remove root. I'll put my own name. Why should I put root there? Let's see. All right, we have an error here. It says target container is not a DOM element. Now you can see that there is an error. Let me remove the developer tools. Now you'll see that there is an error in index.js in line number 4. And you can also see one more thing. Webpack. This is what I was talking about. So your Webpack said React, hey, go find index.js as the entry point for your application. So this guy, Mr. Yes, is trying to write React code and told me that index.js is the entry point for this application. So I've given it to you. It's all up to you now. But now React went back to the Webpack and said, hey, you're trying to load something. It failed here. It's because there is no error handling, proper error handling, that we still have it here. So it threw me an application inside Webpack. Okay, saying that I'm trying to export something, but it's not as per the React specification. Okay, Webpack, we'll see. Oh, can I not open it like this? How did I open it when I learned it? Okay, you compiled. Okay. Okay, let's go back. Now we'll remove Ishwar and put back root. We'll see if it works. So it's working. Now you must be wondering where this root has come up. Let's quickly inspect the developer tools. So this is my paragraph, the HTML. Now it's sitting inside a div with an ID called root. Now where is this coming from? If you carefully observe this, we have seen this all text previously when we started looking at the application. At the start of this application, we saw this. Remember, where did we see this? We saw it in our index.html. Let's quickly see. Okay, so this is where your root element is. So essentially what we are saying React is, hey, go find a div element, essentially a HTML element, which is a container. We generally have divs as container elements. So I'm going back to the React and saying, when I say, hey React, when you come across this line, hey React DOM, please render. This is from the parent element, a paragraph tag under the container inside my HTML whose ID is root. All right. So now what React DOM does is, React DOM goes back to your index.html, scans through the whole file and sees that it does have a container element, HTML element, a div with an ID called root. Now that's how it puts all this inside this div. So it is essentially wrapping things inside it. If you want, we'll write another paragraph. I am writing this directly inside the HTML. All right, let's see what happens. The React has re-rendered this, but however, it is not overridden by React. Why? Next question. So next thing we'll have to drill down. Now React DOM went there. It found a div which is a container with an element called root. However, it found that it already has values inside it. Now it says, hey, it's already filled. Now someone wrote some piece of code which I'm not really allowed to change or edit. So React follows this paradigm called functional programming, where you are not supposed to mutate things. So you cannot mutate which already exists. You can only generate something from the already existing one and create new things. So when you have already something, you cannot do this. Probably we can say this. We'll write div, give it an ID, sure. It should be, I think. And we'll say React, hey, now please go find a div which has ID as Ishwar, and can you try rendering it? Still doesn't work? Not sure. Still doesn't work. I know the answer. Let's see. Oh, it's rendering it from here. I'm sorry, guys. Let's close this. The culprit. Okay. Let's have both the divs together. Now one div is rendering the contents which are directly from the HTML, while the other one is rendering inside the container which we specified it to put our data in. So what we're gonna do next is essentially I'm gonna tell you one of the critical pieces of React app. If you are starting a fresh new web application using purely React and you are not writing on top of existing frameworks or libraries that you already have, then you essentially have one root element. So you essentially end up with only one div element. Otherwise, as I mentioned earlier, React is just a library, so you can plug it in even into things like Angular. So Angular is a framework, so it has a lot of libraries. Probably Angular Angular has libraries for HTML. Sorry, HTTP, where you can go make HTTP connections and query server. So Angular gives you this library to make server calls within its framework's specification. So React doesn't give you this. So because React is just another library out there, you can plug it into any other framework like Angular and get your stuff done. Then you might have multiple root elements defined in your HTML. Then you'll have to take care of where you want to render what pieces of your content, because you might be moving from Angular to React, or you might want to have both Angular as well as React in your applications, because there is a mix and match in the skill sets of your developers that you've hired in your office. Okay, so this is one thing. The other one is yeah, so let's write a few more pieces of this. I'll reduce the font size so that it's a bit easy for us to write code and do the stuff. I'll quickly close this, sorry, minimize this as well. Let's go back and put another paragraph. I am executing another p tag here. All right, wonderful. We have another error, yet another error. Let's see what the error says. So essentially, whenever you see an error, don't get confused. It's a way of having a conversation. So the application, the language is trying to have a conversation with you. The application or the library that you're using, the framework that you're using, is essentially trying to have a conversation with you. So what it says, hey, I've got a parsing error in line 5. of your application. Yes, obviously this is line number 5 in our application code. So you can see this is line number 5, this whole piece of code, and it says, okay, I'm also showing this. So what's the error? So the parsing error is adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. Did you want a JSX fragment? All right. So it's saying that you cannot have multiple HTML elements next to each other without wrapping them up in a container. There are multiple reasons for it. Multiple things that I will have to explain it for you to understand it. But one of the foremost things that I would explain you here is that React always tries to have elements rendered as part of the containers. So when you saw that you have a container here with an ID issuer, so you put everything that's gonna go into that container. Now React is confused when you say I have 2 paragraphs and I want to put it into a div which has an ID issuer. No, React doesn't understand it. I generally have one big chunk of thing that I have to put inside the container. It's not like multiple books that you insert in your school bag or a college bag. So React doesn't do it. Now why does React not do it? We'll have to drill a bit deep into this. Let's go check out React DOM.render function. Okay. Oh, renderer. I think if I'm spending, yeah. So render sees that it is accepting a React node, React.React node, and it takes only one thing here. Now, what is this exactly? We will have to discuss this. We will discuss this, but in the coming series. So essentially it says, now forget about what is this JSX fragment. There's one quick solution to this. It just says that you should wrap it. So let's wrap it. So one of the easiest way to do is have a div again and put them all inside a div. All right, we are there. So we get all the p tags rendered on an application, on our web app in the browser, and there's no error. Now if you go back and inspect your HTML, okay, you have your div with ID issuer. I'll have to increase the font size again. So where is this? Okay, let's put the CSS outside. Okay, so oh god. Okay, you have your ID issuer, a div with ID issuer. Inside that you have your div, that is this div. Let's give it an ID render ID. So you have your render ID, inside which you have both of your p tags. So in the recent increments of the React releases, React came up with the best solution. This is because you are having a chain of divs that you would build upon as you grow in your application size and grow in the complexity of your application code. So React came up with a stuff where you just have to render these 2 p tags, but not necessarily with a div, but inside the actual parent div. How do you do this? Get rid of the div, and there's one more thing called React dot fragment. Okay, let the code render. Now if you see, both the p tags belong to the div directly rather than they belonging to one level up in the div, and this whole div belongs to another level up, which is inside the HTML in the public folder. Now why all this happens, we would discuss in the upcoming series. Probably I would want to take a break here and get yourself run through this in your mind and understand this whole thing, we would also, I think I should mention this too and then stop this video cast. So you have two things here. One is import React from React. So essentially this React is nothing but your React library, npm package. So if you go to node modules, say React, search for React, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Give it a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes. It's very good. Okay, this is your React. So it has an entry point called index.js. So what it exposes is a development.js and a production minified version based on the node environments. Currently, because we are running it in dev mode, what I'll do is quickly go into this and see what's the entry point for this. Go all the way down, page down. This is all pure JavaScript, nothing fancy, nothing technical, nothing rocket science. They're all variables. You can see they still use var because they have to support a lot of other stuff, not just the ES6. So if you go all the way down, it's a huge file. It exposes module.react. So it exposes React default or React 3. It exposes React. So this is from where you get all the stuff. So one specific function probably I would want you to look at. Set state. Okay, this is when you write classes, which would be in the upcoming series. React suspense, a lot of stuff. Okay, if it's a pure component, if it's a functional component, then there's another stuff. React refs. Okay, I think this is too in depth. Probably what I'll explain you is, okay, you just have to import React, which is a library in your application, so that you can use it. Just like how you have a calculator application with add, subtract, multiply and other stuff. This is how you need it. Then you have your React DOM, which is another library. You would have noticed it inside your application. React dash DOM. Yeah, another library which is just a JS file. It exposes development.js, use strict. So it also needs React. So it says, okay, I need to create a React import. You see this is in common JS. This is not like the import statement that you're writing. That's not the required statement that you're writing. Few things. This is again pure similar JavaScript. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, again, reiterating a quick summary of what we have discussed so far. We have two import statements. One is React. If we don't import React, what is it that's going to happen? Let's comment it out. It says it failed because React must be in the scope when using JSX. Okay, so I'm using a JSX, so React says I need it, so I'll remove it. So I'll put them back, but still it fails. It says React must be in the scope when using JSX, when using JSX, when using JSX. Now what is JSX? We'll discuss in the next video, which I'll be uploading on Sunday. So essentially, for React to understand what is it that you wrote here, you need to import the React library, which will parse this whole code and says, okay, fine, this is as per my specification. And I can parse this, I can render this on the browser. Okay. what happens if I don't put a react dom.render? It's also part of the upcoming series, and just bear with me for a couple of more days. I think this is too much for today. Let all this data sink into your mind. And as I mentioned ago, this is kind of a real-time coding and real-time explaining and real-time pair programming. So if you have someone in your team who's pretty new, who should um, get the hands-on on React and get them up and running, this is how they would have to. This is how I would love someone to explain it to me, and that's what I'm doing it here. So again, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, feedback, be it whatever it is, feel free to put them in the comments. And somehow I don't like to say it, but yeah, I think this is kind of a norm in the development circuit, that please subscribe and do share it with your friends. I'll be happy to have more subs. So currently I have 175 subscribers who are pretty happy with the work that I'm doing. Most of them are known to me outside of my YouTube channel as well, so I pretty much connect with them out in my real life. So this is one of the ways to reach more audience and reach more friends out there with whom I can share my knowledge. So this is giving back to the community, and please feel free to subscribe and help me reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of this October. I'll be pretty happy with it. And thanks again. See ya.